Welcome to Inside Straight, and welcome back to those of you who have watched me last week. You might have heard in the background my tech, my agent, my manager, and my wife, Kelly. Here she is. I think she'd be a great addition instead of being the voice in the background to be part of the show. And I think she's easier on the eyes than I am. So,
That depends.
so here she is, Kelly. Say hi.
Hi.
Okay, I'm going to jump right into the NFL. We have a lot to go over. First of all, last week, if you watched, you would see that I was 10-2, 10 wins against 2 losses. And I got to say, we take a lot of questions, and most of them are great. I can't tolerate the question that, what happened to the 49ers? One of my 2 losses, and that was one of the questions we got. It was a preseason game, and they ended in a tie. We didn't win the bet. That's life. It happens. You didn't ask me about the 10 winners. 2 underdogs, 2 totals under, 4-1 baseball. So moving forward, let's hope we have a good week again. And I want to talk a little bit about handicapping the NFL. It's not quite the same as handicapping college. The reason is college football, the players can be a 1 on a scale, or they can be a 10. In the NFL, it's tighter. They're all pros. They're all the greatest of the greatest. And it's a tighter statistical matchup. So you can have a quarterback that the worst quarterback's generally going to be around a 2, the best is going to be around a 5. So it's a little bit different. The other things you have to look into in the NFL, I think a little bit more than the college, because the college players are always rah-rah. They're always looking for that next weekend. Where the pros are making big money, it could get monotonous, it could get boring. They might not be playing with the same vigor every week. So the intangibles are very important. One thing I like to look at is the quarterback, of course. And you might have heard it before, but I'm going to say it because it's very true. When a quarterback is talking about retirement, he's mulling retirement. This may be my last year. You better put a big -3 in the intangible column when you're handicapping, because he's looking forward to his days in the booth or his days vacationing, whatever he plans on doing in the future. So if you hear that, that to me is definitely a negative. The other thing about quarterbacks is when a coach says this term, it kills me. I just don't want him to lose the game. He doesn't have to do anything. He just got to be a manager. Don't lose the game. That's not an endorsement to me. Do you think Belichick ever told Tom Brady before a game, don't lose this game? He wants Brady to go out there and do his thing. Same for Mahomes. Andy Reid is not going to tell him, Pat, don't lose this game for us. He wants him throwing hook passes, passes behind his back, because he can do it. And he's probably got an 80% completion rate when he does it. He's special. Reminds me of a story, Jimmy Johnson, when he was coaching the Miami Dolphins. It was Monday morning, and the first thing you do on Monday morning is look at the game films. It gives your body a chance to recover. And one of the second-string offensive linemen fell asleep. Jimmy Johnson, the legendary coach, cut him on the spot. Fired him. He was off the team for falling asleep at the meeting. He was then asked by one of the announcers, Jimmy, what if it was Dan Marino? He said, well, I would have tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, Dan, how was your nap? Depends on the player. Dan Marino gets a little bit more, just like Patrick Mahomes does. So when you're handicapping football, keep that in mind. If a coach says don't lose the game, and that's going to lead me to one more very important point, the San Francisco 49ers. I like Brock Purdy. I think and I was behind him 1,000% when he took over and he was 8-0, and people said, I'll never win with Brock Purdy. He was 8-0. I says he's only got to be 9-0, and he wins. But I believe he's in that mold. I believe he's considered more of a manager and than a star player that's expected to do big things to win. And I think that held them back a little bit. I think if the 49ers would have had more of a star, they would have won at least one of those Super Bowls. So very important when you handicap in football. I'm going to go on to, where's my papers? Where did I put them? Bear with me. The conferences. Again, like I showed you last week, I go through every position and rate them position by position. And I'm going to go quickly through the divisions and talk to you a little bit about how I'm going to bet my Super Bowl. Next week, we'll be doing the individual games because they don't start until next week. Too much time. Players can get hurt. I'm not going to give you a team for next week now. But we'll start with the NFC West. That's where the 49ers are. After rating all the positions, okay, I've got the Rams as very potentially the team to beat. I know most of the public says 49ers. They were waiting on a holdout, one of their great receivers, Brandon Ayuk. I'm not sure at this moment if he signed. I know he's practicing, or he was practicing. That's a big issue. But the Rams have the edge in quarterback with Stafford. They have a +4 running game. San Fran has a +5 running game. We all know about McCaffrey. I don't have to discuss him. The receivers, very, very even because of guys like Ayuk, Debo, McCaffrey goes out and catch passes. But they also have Kittle, who to me is the 5 on a scale of 1 to 5 tight end in the league. And I'm going to tell you why. I know all the public out there say, oh, Travis Kelce's the best. Travis Kelce's a 4.75. He's this far below him. You flip-flop the quarterbacks. If you have Mahomes quarterbacking the 49ers, Kittle may catch 4 touchdown passes a game. But again, it's Brock Purdy. He's handing the ball off to McCaffrey. He can't get creative. So you got to keep that in mind. Again, that's my opinion. I think so. And the Rams have fantastic receivers also. You know, the kid Nakoa, obviously Cooper Kupp. They're solid. Tight ends, everything. So those two are the teams to beat. I'm leaning toward the Rams. Let's go. No special orders the way I handicapped it. The NFC East. The Bills, to me, I think they're going to have a bit of a tough season. They lost Diggs. They lost some other players. They lost one of their defenders. He's just coming back off an injury. They have a lot of question marks. They do have Josh Allen. I love him. He's a 4-5 to me. And he's a 5 as a runner because he'll run over you. He'll run around you. He'll run past you. He brings a lot to the table. New England, I just think is going to be the last place team in that division again, although their defense is going to put them in a lot of under games. They have a solid defense, 4 right across the board. Their defensive line, their linebackers, and their secondary. So their defense will keep them in games, so they may cover big spreads, but I don't think they're the team. The Jets, I mentioned last week, is a sleeper. As I got deeper in, I think they have some issues. I don't think their running game is going to be strong enough. Aaron Rodgers is 40 years old, coming off ACL injury. Is that what it is? No, Achilles injury. And he's 40 years old. I'm not going to put a lot of money on that until I see it. So I'm going to have to see that coming. I do like Miami to bounce back. Early in the season, they have a big edge playing down in Miami in the heat. I think they're going to get off to a good start, which is going to help the young quarterback. He hasn't been around that long. He's had a great season. He had some ups and downs. He got injuries. He's learned to not take the hits. Last year, he played a complete season. They have a great running game, 4.5. Their receivers, 4.75, which means they're right up there at the top. 5 is the best you can get. We all know Tyreek Hill. The other speed demon they have, Hakeem. Again, there's so many names. It's hard for me to remember them all. Their offensive line is only a 3.25. That's what you got to watch for. But again, in that division, I think Miami's going to win that division. Go down to the NFC Central. I think Baltimore's got to win it. They're just too solid all around. The Their special teams are even top of the line. They got a great coach, a 4.5 coach, Harbaugh. So I think they're going to win it. I think Cincinnati, although I love Burrow, they lost their running back Dixon, and I think he's hard to replace. He was somebody that carried half the load for Burrows, and the running game slipped to a 3. Their defense is average. My first glance, I liked Cincy. I had them in my Super Bowl thing. I just don't see it anymore. Cleveland, with their defense, although they have an injury, running back Chubb's gone, so they're weaker there. Pittsburgh, I think, is in some kind of rebuilding mode. I don't see them doing anything. Baltimore looks like they'll be there, and probably one of my picks in my box, which I'll give you for the Super Bowl. Let's go to the NFC East. 2-horse race, Dallas and Philly, toss a coin. I see some positives for both. I see some negatives. I think Philly's the more solid team. Dallas, in the running game, has taken a hit. They lost Pollard. They got Zeke back. After leaving for a while, he's going to have to prove that he can be a workhorse again. I think that's going to hurt them. The 2 quarterbacks, you can argue back and forth who's better. I got them both at a 4. Philly's runs a little better. The receivers, I gave the edge to Philly. Offensive line, big edge to Philly. So they're probably, but Dallas wouldn't surprise me. I just don't see the Giants being in the race. They have a horrible quarterback situation. They lost their running back, Saquon Barkley. Their receivers are less than average. Their offensive line less than average. I think they have an ugly season coming. Same for Washington. NFC Central. When you talk about the toughest divisions, most people will say, the toughest division is Kansas City's division. But it's usually a 1-horse race, so it's not that tough. To me, this is almost wide open. I'm going to make a strong argument for Detroit and Green Bay. I think they're at the top tier in the NFL, especially offensively. Green Bay has picked up Jacobs at running back from Oakland or from the Las Vegas Raiders, and he's going to only add a dimension to Jordan Love, who can move, and the great receivers that they have. And their defense was good enough when you have an offense like that to keep winning games. They proved it at the end of the year. I can't knock them out. Detroit, I love, same reason. Great running game, great quarterback, receivers, tight ends, offensive line, they're solid. Their defense, to me, is maybe a bit lesser than Green Bay's. They blew that game to 49ers last year. We all remember it. They had a big lead. I think the coach, who I like a lot, Dan Campbell, will learn from that. We talked about it last week. You don't learn from the victories, you learn from defeats, and that was a horrible defeat. And I don't think he'll make the same mistakes if he has a lead like that again. He'll be the first to tell you that. He doesn't need me to tell you that. So I think, and the Bears, all depending on that quarterback. If he comes in and he plays to his level that people are thinking, I only have him a 3 right now. He's got to prove himself. But if he's a 4 or better, they're in the race too. That's a tough division. The Vikings, I think, took a step back. They lost McCarthy, who they had high hopes on being their starter at some point. Their defense took a hit, so I'm not crazy about them. I'm not going to waste my breath too much on this NFC Central, I guess, or whatever. I don't even know what the division is. There's too many divisions. But it's Atlanta Falcons, Carolina Panthers, New Orleans Saints, and Tampa Bay. Flip a coin. None of them have, Tampa Bay has a quarterback. I'll give Baker Mayfield another chance. The rest of the way through, they seem to be on the way down or too raw. They're too much. Like the Falcons, I have a note here. They have an upsided quarterback. Right now it's a 3. That means there's probably 3 guys fighting for it, and maybe one will emerge. But I couldn't pick the winner of that division if you gave me 2 games to start with. Here's another real tough division, but I think clearly Houston is the best. Their quarterback, to me, is a 4.5. If he duplicates his season, I'm going to put him a notch below Mahomes. He runs a 4.5. When I say that, that's a rating on a scale of 1 to 5. That's not his dash that you hear a lot about. The running game is a 4. The receivers are a 4.5. They just got Diggs from Buffalo. And that's part of the reason I think Buffalo, they're going to miss him. Stephon Diggs is a stud. He's a top 5 easily in the NFL. And he's a winner. He's not trouble. He was trouble the last year in Buffalo because him and Josh Allen didn't see eye to eye. And I think they had to make a decision. But I think they're clearly the best. I did like Jacksonville. I felt they had a great start last year. And Lawrence is going to be coming on. I think his best years are still ahead of him. I give him a 4 and a 4 run. The running game took a hit. He doesn't have the receivers some of these other guys have. His offensive lines are 3.25. A lot of that doesn't impress me. The defense took a little bit of a hit. I just don't think they're a match for Houston this year. And I liked them last year, so I hate to say that. But I don't bet with my heart. I bet with my head. And we're going to get more into that as we go through the season, or sometimes people ask questions about that. They're their home favorite team and stuff. So anyway, okay. Now the Bronco division is obviously Kansas City's to lose. I don't see that happening. Obviously, Mahomes gets a 5 and a 5 running. When I say 5 running, he's not the runner that Josh Allen is. He's not the runner that Baltimore's Lamar is. But he's elusive and evasive. And when he does run, he accomplishes what he wants to do. He'll see a clear path to that first down marker. He runs right there. He's not looking for extra yardage. He runs when he has to, but he's very elusive in the pocket. And like I said before, he's probably the only quarterback that throws an around the back pass or a hook shot pass where the coach doesn't rip him a new one on the sideline. Most quarterbacks would be chastised by the coach for doing that, even if it was successful. I remember playing football, and my coach is telling me, do not try to pick up a fumble and run with the ball. Fall on the ball, secure the ball, get the ball back for the team. One time I tried to pick it up and run with it, and I missed it, and the other team got the ball back. And back in the day, coaches had a lot more leeway with high school students. I got dirt kicked at me, I got spit at, I got hollered at, I got chastised. I was embarrassed for a month. But I learned my lesson. I never tried to pick up a fumble again. But again, I'm not Mahomes, and he could throw the ball any way he wants. Vegas takes a hit because of the quarterback. They got 3 people fighting for the position. None of them are that good. So I don't see them. They lost their star running back. And even if they replace them with somebody, it's a system. It's a whole new ball game. I don't like them that much. The Chargers, a team I want to talk about. Justin Herbert's a 4.75. He's always had talent around him. He's always had receivers. He still does. He did lose some receivers, so they're not nearly as talented as they have been. But the new coach, Harbaugh, from Michigan, proven winner everywhere he goes. I believe he's going to remodel the team to be more of a running team, which will make Herbert's job that much less strenuous. His numbers are fantastic. They're up there with the best almost in history for the first 5 or 6 years in the NFL. Fantastic. The defense was always solid. They don't have the stars they once had, obviously, except for Bosa. He's fantastic, and that's why I gave the linebackers a 4.5. The defensive line is a 3.25. They have a great secondary. I believe they'll finish second to Kansas City, and they'll win a lot of games. And I do like Harbaugh a lot. So there may be a little bit of my heart talking, but everywhere he goes, he wins. And I think if not this year, within 3 years, they'll be knocking at the door for a Super Bowl, maybe next year. So when I pick my predictions for the Super Bowl, I like to box 2 teams on each side. I talked about that briefly last week because I didn't do all the handicapping. I have a certain team in the AFC. Well, actually, a certain 2 teams, Houston and Baltimore. Kansas City's the favorite, so right off the bat, that gives you some value. If KC gets knocked out, not that Houston and Baltimore are long shots, but once you beat the favorite, you get odds. So those are my 2 picks. I had Jacksonville on there, but after getting more in depth, I don't like them. None of the other teams. Cincinnati, I just don't see Cincinnati beating out Baltimore this year. So those are my 2 teams in the AFC to be in a matchup against. I'm down to 3 teams. I haven't made my final decision yet. Detroit and Green Bay, like I said. Green Bay, it's a little bit of jumping on the bandwagon, but I just feel it coming. I feel it coming. Green Bay is an NFL favorite, a fan favorite. I just think they are going to be in the mix. Same for Detroit. But I can't throw out the Rams. And then once I get deeper into the odds, I may do 3-team box. If the odds are right, that's not a big deal. You put Detroit against Baltimore as a final, Detroit against Houston as a final. Then you take Green Bay and you put them against the other two teams. If the odds are all 15, 20 to 1, it's worth it. I had a hard time taking them over the Rams, so that's why I'm waiting. I just want to make sure there's no injuries. I want to do a little bit more homework, and if there's a third team in the AFC, it would be Miami, but unless they have home field advantage throughout, they have trouble going into places like Baltimore when it's frozen and it's windy and it's cold, when they're so used to having suntans in Miami. So that's a little rough. I know I'm going a little faster this week. I hope you're watching and taking notes, but I have to move on to college. This is truly the opening day of college. And what I have here in front of me are my picks. I'll try to get through all of them today if we can. If not, we will do a second show. We're planning on doing a Wednesday and Friday show. And once the website kinks are totally out and the techs have a few things, what are they working on right now, Cal?
They're just doing all the testing of the data right now, and the credit cards are all set up, everything's set up, but they're just testing the data and downloading to make sure there's no kinks come.
Right. Okay. So once that happens, we will definitely be doing 2 podcasts a week, and they'll be meaningful podcasts. It'll be important because I don't want to have to go fast. I don't want to mumble jumble. I want to give people a chance to respond. I know you've been getting texts all morning, which is good. I want to also remind you, there are wise guy outfits that play games that I'm privy to. I do my own handicapping. And it's inevitably going to happen where we butt heads. I mentioned it last year. I think I came out on the higher end of games where we butt heads. And I've learned something. People say the world is small, and it is. The gambling world is even smaller. 6 degrees of separation may become 3 degrees. You can be sure somebody knows me in Las Vegas. You can be sure my old buddies from New York know me and follow me. I branch out. And again, I'm not the only one. I mentioned names like Billy Walters. There's other professionals out there that their predictions and their bets and their systems are respected. So there are places that may ask me on a Monday and Tuesday, and I give them the games I like, games that I want to play on. And they may adjust their lines. So the wise guy outfits will come back and play against that line just to keep that house honest. When I say that house, it could be MGM Grand, it could be a bookie in New York. That's not my place. I don't care who it is. But whoever it is that is taking the action, the Hard Rock, you get my drift, it could be anybody, they will move their lines. And then it's up to the pros to say, okay, I got to keep this guy honest. So sometimes they'll just play a line. And I'm going to show you a few of them as we go along. One of my first games I came up with was North Carolina. North Carolina, for those of you who have a schedule, is game 307 and 308. I have them minus 14.5. That's over 2 touchdowns, obviously. The line maker opened the game, Minnesota, who they're playing, obviously, minus 2.5. The line has changed. Now North Carolina is up to 3. So I had that game right. That to me is a big play. And I think I might have the game number wrong. because I had something with the date there. But it's North Carolina, and they're playing Minnesota on Thursday, 8:28. So forget the number of the rotation for now. But North Carolina, everywhere from quarterback. I'll give you an example. The quarterback for North Carolina, I rate 5.25. It's not super high, but Minnesota's quarterback, now you know why we do this live, doesn't even get a 1. He's a .75. That's scary. The running back for North Carolina, 5.25. Minnesota's running back even. Receivers, 4.25. Minnesota's -2. I don't think they have an answer to North Carolina's defense. I don't know what the line maker was looking at. And straight across the board, they can't stop North Carolina. I got a -14.5. I got a gold bar next to them. And I don't believe any of the so-called professionals went the other way. So that's a solid play, and that's a Larry play. Jacksonville State is my next one. Here's a perfect example. When I played them, they were +3.5. Take it back, they were -3.5. I had them -21. Same thing, right across the board, they totally outmatched Coastal Carolina. Coastal Carolina is known to the public because they had a quarterback, Grayson McCall, last year, who was 95% of their offense. He was awesome. So he is gone. He went to North Carolina State through the portal. We talked about that. I can't talk about it every week. So they took a hit. Other players left too. Like if you're a receiver in Coastal Carolina and you lost Grayson McCall, do you still want to be there with some freshman or some quarterback that's not going to be nearly as good? No, they lost a lot. And some people that follow me adjusted the line fairly significantly, and one of the wise guys' outfit took Coastal Carolina. So this is where, when you're on the website, you'll read all of this in my analysis, and it's a game you can lay off. But as the season progresses, you'll say, hey, Larry's better than this guy, or Larry better learn his lesson. It happens both ways, but I'm sticking with my team, Jacksonville State. Too much of a discrepancy there. I'm not sure what the line maker's thinking, and every step of the way, they were better. Eastern Michigan, same situation. I had Eastern Michigan, that is game 161. Massachusetts is favored by 3. Unless I am just, and I'm not, I'm doing this too many years, I don't see how they're favored. I don't think they should be favored over anybody. They shouldn't be favored over some high school teams. They're horrible. You thought that was funny?
I did.
Okay.
Sorry.
All right. That maybe they could be favored over elementary schools. Okay. I want to give them
Junior
their
high,
due. No,
junior
anyway.
high.
Now, if they're watching the show, they don't want to prove themselves. But anyway, they're Eastern Michigan. They're no superstars either, but the matchup is the matchup, and they got a +3.5 quarterback versus the defense. Make sure I clarify that. When I say the number now, it's not their quarterback rating on a scale of 1 to 10. It's how they rate against the defense. So they get a +3.5. Reasonable. Running back +3.5. Receiver +1.5. Offensive line +1.5. Massachusetts gets a even quarterback, -3.25, -0.5, minus is all across the board. They get a very small edge for home field because they're probably not even going to have fans in the seats. So you don't give them a regular 3 points. That's too high anyway nowadays. I've got them -17, and the odd maker got Massachusetts -3. Same situation there. When the line moved, the wise guys took Massachusetts at -1. They didn't take him at -3. If they had, that would have been a hot game, and I would have had to tell you that. But the wise guys took Massachusetts because of the line. I think Eastern Michigan's a solid play. The Florida game, for you Florida fans, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. Typically, the public thinks of the Florida Gators being defensive down there in the heat. We know about the heat because we jog in it every day. I take her up the hill with me or on bike rides. So game 185, Florida and Miami. And Miami's partly the reason why. Both teams play in the heat. So they're okay with that. Miami is going to be a very, very, very very good offensive team this year. They've been touted over the last 2 years as being good, but I think they finally put the pieces together. And I think they're going to score a lot of points. Their defense is adequate but not good. And Florida always has talent. I just think that's going to be a lot of points in that game. Nobody else touched it. None of the wise guys seem to have paid attention. So my play over Florida. Nebraska, game 190. I've got Nebraska minus 35.5. The line maker has them 27.5. They're playing UTEP. And again, I'm not going to go through everything, but the offensive rating versus the defense clearly shows me Nebraska will have its own way. And UTEP, conversely, will struggle to move the ball. So to me, it's a one-sided game. Nebraska's a play. Boise State, game 178. Boise State is a tough pick because they're a fan favorite. People like them. They like that blue field. But I got them as a play. I think, again, the matchups, I'm not going to go through it all. I want to move on. But I have the game minus 27. The line maker only has a minus 12. They're playing Georgia Southern. That's another team. Georgia Southern is going to lose all their good players to teams in that region, like Georgia, Georgia Tech. That's probably why Georgia Tech was good last week against FSU, because they get the best players from those teams through the portal now. So I'm thinking Boise State could run that one up. Game 170, Charlotte. They're playing James Madison. James Madison was good. They're not going to sneak up on anybody this year. Same thing. They've lost players the first year in the division, the top division in college football, not Division 3A or one of those. They were good, and I think they'll be good again. But they're not that good. They shouldn't be minus 7 over Charlotte. In Charlotte, very equal rating. I think I got them minus 2.5. So Charlotte, I'm not only taking the 7 points, I'm going to put a small play on them plus the money line. You get a lot of value, but they have to win the whole game. You know, the 7 points, if they lose by anything under 7, I win. But I'm going to take a little stab with them winning the whole game. We're about halfway through. Syracuse, game 164. I have them minus 29. They're playing Ohio, not Ohio State. And in Syracuse gets a true home field advantage. I got a reason to talk about home field advantage in a few minutes, but Syracuse outranks Ohio by far. 17 is the odds maker. Again, maybe because it's early in the season. I got them 28. I'm taking Syracuse. Wyoming, I like this play. 183 and 184. They're playing ASU. I've got the game. They got ASU minus 6.5. I've got Wyoming minus 2.5. So I'm going to be taking the points and also the money line. What I do like in that game, because my numbers show a tight game, not a shootout, probably a lot of running. I don't see a lot of points. And the wise guys came in with under in that game. So even though I didn't tout the under, I may follow them because it ties into my handicapping. I think Wyoming, like I said, in a tight game can win this game. They've got good numbers, reasonable numbers on offense, and defensively, they can stop ASU. And the wise guys took under, so that supports my prediction. Okay, now we got UNLV, if I can understand my handwriting. That's game 193. They're playing Houston. The odds maker has Houston 2. I've got UNLV scoring easily. I mean, they're gonna be able to run. The quarterback is athletic. He can throw good. He's gonna run like crazy. They got a good running back, good receivers, all great ratings. And Houston, I think, will move the ball too. So it's probably gonna be an over game. I'm gonna play. I didn't play the over yet. I don't have them written down yet. But UNLV to me is one of those games too. A small favorite. A small underdog that you might as well take the points too. When you take a team that's 1 or 2 point underdog, the points aren't that important. If you look statistically, chances are they're going to win the game. But when I tell somebody that for the first time, it'll land right on 2, which is not likely to happen, but it happens just to keep me honest every once in a while. But I think if you're going to take UNLV, you could take the points or the money line or both, like I'm going to do. Virginia Tech, game 199. Virginia Tech is a team I touted. I bet them over, if you remember from last week's show. They're playing Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt is like Massachusetts. They're not going to have a big crowd. They have very little talent. I don't see how they're going to move the ball against Virginia Tech. Virginia Tech is going to run, throw, do everything they want. I got them minus 38. The odd maker has them 13.5. Take notes of this, because when Virginia Tech blows out Vandy, don't be shocked. I'll be shocked if they don't. Okay, that's Virginia Tech. Hawaii, this is a game I want to talk about, very important. Hawaii is playing UCLA. If I ask the audience, the number one home field advantage, what do you think the answer would be? Most people would say Georgia, Alabama, all the great teams. The coaches did a poll, or they were polled. And almost to a man, and this was done a few years back, the coaches rated the biggest home field advantage, Hawaii. They can't get the players to concentrate. They have to get there a few days early. You got hula dancers kissing you when you get off the plane. You got these wreaths or whatever they call them put around.
Lays.
They get laid, what?
No, they got laid.
Oh, they got laid. Don't talk like that. This is
I know.
a rated PG show. They get those things put on. They're probably seeing beaches and just beautiful surf. Very hard to concentrate on football. So UCLA is going there. They're rated 13.5 point favorite. I got the game pick 'em, and I'm going to tell you why. Hawaii now has their old offensive strategy or system back. They lost it for a while. They either got their offensive coordinator back, they've got a good quarterback, very good quarterback again, very athletic, and they're going to be sky high for their opener. They got fast receivers. UCLA is going to have their hands full. If I was a house, I would love to be taking teasers. I think that's one of the teaser killers, where they pull UCLA down to minus 3. Oh, I only have to win by 3.5, and they lose the whole game. I'm also taking that game on a money line. And remember what I said about the home field advantage. Hawaii can very possibly win this game as 13.5 point dogs. Fresno State, I mentioned them last week too. Another team I thought is valued to possibly win their conference. They're playing Michigan. Michigan is 21.5 point favorites. I've got them 13.5. I don't know that they'll go into Michigan and win. Michigan still has a lot of talent. They're going to feel the effects of no Harbaugh. They're going to feel the effects of no McCarthy. Their stud running back is in the NFL too. They're going to feel those effects. So that's a big cover against a talented team. So I'm leaning toward Fresno. Notre Dame. They're a 2.5 point underdog to A&M. A&M's a solid team. But the numbers here show me they're going to have a hard time with Notre Dame's defense. Again, I did the matchups, quarterback to safeties, quarterback to cornerback. Then if the quarterback can run, he'll get a little rating. The running back, A&M has a good running back, but he's a -2 against this defense. Same thing with the receivers. Notre Dame's defensive line is going to cause a little havoc to A&M. I have Notre Dame -10. So I'm taking them plus the 2.5 and plus the money. We're almost through these, so hang in. FSU. Remember last week I told you that they'd have a hard time with Georgia Tech, and we were right. This week, they opened up 21.5. Because they played so bad in that first game, the line dropped about 5 or 6 points. And I've got them -30 against Boston College. They're home. They're playing in Tallahassee this week. Major difference for them playing in Ireland. And their numbers, they outmatch Boston College. And you can be sure the coach is going to light them up. They're going to play a big game, FSU. They're worth a bet. I'm going to give honorable mention to a few more games because They're not particularly my pick, but they were wise guy plays. One I mentioned was under the Wyoming game, so I won't go there. They took Rice, game 202. We're almost done with this, and we're going to move on. I got Rice, so I don't agree with that, but I wrote it down. I want the public to know the wise guys played Rice. I don't really agree with it. Over the TCU game, I agree with that one. My numbers came up. I just got one more minute of this, and we're moving on. Against Stanford, both teams look like they can move the ball. And the last one is under Northwestern. I got to mention this real quick because when the line came out, I had Northwestern -6. They were -4 by the odds maker. Wise guys took Miami of Ohio, but I sent the message out to my people, my members, that I wasn't crazy about that. I think it's a potential buyback. I think Northwestern wins a field goal type game, a very close game. And what I like is the wise guys took under. That feeds right into my handicapping. So those are your college games. If anything else develops, our next show we will let you know. And I think we're going to go to questions. You've been getting some?
I have been
Let's
getting
move
some.
on to that. Did I leave anything out of importance?
A special thanks to Brandon.
Again, thank you to Brandon, our tech who's teaching Kelly on the fly. And I always have to thank Joe Paletto, who is my producer, and not only for my potential movie deal, he's also producing this for me, and I give him a lot of thanks for that. And the book is still moving forward with things. So anyway, let's go to question and answers now.
Okay, first, we probably will be changing our studio up a few times because we're having one built. So we're trying
Yes.
out different settings right now.
Yeah.
I may not always be here. I might be on the other side of the camera.
Yeah.
We might be in different
But
locations.
you'll always be on camera.
I'll always be on camera, but we'll flip back and forth. We're trying out a few things just to
Yes.
see what works best for the
Yeah.
show and what we can do. And you mentioned Inside Straight, www.insidestraight.com.
You just did. Yep. And we're going to have, once we have us, they will have a banner for that also for the book, www.larrymazza-life-thelife.com. Yeah, we'll go through all of those. Absolutely.
Okay, so the first question would be from Mike from New Jersey. You were 4-0 in college last week, and I won. Thank you. He's out with the boys this week having a good time. Who's your best number one pick for this week?
Number one pick. Well, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to tell you why. If I give you one pick, or you just make one play, you got to be 100% to turn a profit. If I give you 3 picks, I only, and it's not an easy task, have to be 66%.
Right.
If I give you 5 teams, I only have to be 60%. So technically, Brandon, you got to pay the bill, buddy. Sorry. It's okay. You have to go with the system. All these games are rated. You could zero in on from what I've said or what the gold bar games are, but I'll never give you just one prediction. But based on what I said today, you could hear a few of them, maybe Wyoming, Hawaii, a few different ones that are maybe stronger than the others.
Okay, next we have a question from Sarah from Denver.
Okay.
I watched a show with my husband, Tony, a Colorado Buffalo fan. Can they make it to the playoffs?
The Buffaloes, Colorado, don't put your money on that. They're not sneaking up on anybody. No, they're not going to make the playoffs. Sorry to tell you. I'm very sorry to tell you that. But thank you for watching the show.
Hers goes on further.
Oh.
Can the Broncos make it to the playoffs?
Move to another state if you want to root for your teams because the Broncos aren't going to make the playoffs this year either.
Okay, and why can't I find your book in bookstores?
Oh, well, because it's not there.
That would be a good reason.
I'm self-published. I wrote the book myself. I published it myself through a local printer and editor. So it can only be found on the website I mentioned, www.larrymazza-life.com. What comes with that is an autographed copy. Eventually, if it does become a movie or TV series, I will link up with a bigger publisher.
Okay. Now we have Jean from Merritt Island. I've seen you on tons of podcasts. Love them. Happy that you have your own.
Thank you.
Also, I have read your column, My 2 Cents. Do you see the theme here? Last week we had a My 2 Cents. So these people
I was
are
very
calling.
popular with that.
Yes. Why no politics? Who's going to win the debate? Just sucked you right in.
Well, last week they asked who would win the election. I said, watch the board, watch Vegas. Well, again, politics is the great divider right now. I'm not looking to make enemies. I'm not looking to make friends. Anything I say isn't going to sway somebody's opinion. But I will say this. It's almost like what I said before about betting with your heart and not your head. Some people vote with their hearts and not their heads. So they're not going to change. They're like people that love the Jets for the last 20 years. If I tell them don't bet the other team, they're just going to keep on betting the Jets because they love them or they don't like the other team. So it's hard. The debate, the last thing I heard about the debate was that somebody wanted to sit down and take notes and whatever. If I was the other person, I don't know who's going to win the debate, but if I was the other person, I'd say go right ahead and sit down. This way I can look down at you while I'm talking to you. Why would you want to be sitting down? I don't understand why that is even newsworthy. I'd rather stand up and look down at my opponent. Just like the guys in the movies, I say they got to wear Frankenstein heels, or when they're walking down a hall, they lower the doorknobs so some actors look taller. You know, it's, what's that word you say? It's all perception?
Yes. Okay. Robert.
I won't even watch the debate if there's a football game on.
And there will be.
I hope so, because that's more important to me, especially if I have action or I've touted one of those games.
Ready?
That's a little selfish, I know.
Yes.
But that's why oysters are ungenerous. They're shellfish. Okay. Next question.
No jokes.
No jokes.
No jokes today.
I'm sorry.
Okay. No, be serious. All right, Robert from
And
Florida.
don't call me Shirley.
That's right, Robert from Florida.
Yes.
I know from your podcast that you own a gym.
I do.
And you look like you're in good shape. Thank you. Have you ever trained elite athletes?
Well, I do own a gym, and you know it's family owned. I have a lot of help with it now. I did spend 20 years since I came home from prison in the fitness business, and I've grown to a level where I'm somewhat well known in the area, and I have trained, and I still train. I trained years ago a couple of champion kickboxers. Not that I was on their level. I sparred with them, and that's all I would do. I would never fight them because they knocked me out. That's why my nose was destroyed with cartilage. Thank God I had that put back together. But I trained them basically more for conditioning. That's turned out to be my specialty. I could teach defense, I could teach movements and stuff, but it takes more to really train a fighter to that next level. I trained Joe Spartan, is what I affectionately call him. He's a top 5. He was a top 5 pre-pandemic Spartan racer in the country or in the world. Country's good enough. Country's good enough when you're top 5 at anything. I have, and I have a good following, but as I get a little bit older and I get more busy with other things, I can't do it as consistently. So luckily enough, I have my daughter-in-law, Callie, my son-in-law, Josh, my son, Lawrence. Kelly can do some spinning, bike riding, we different things. So we do have a good clientele, and yes, I have trained elite athletes. Thank you.
Okay, so we have Mike from Long Island. Will you be doing any NBA and college baskets? If so, when and how can I join?
I will be doing all sports, like I said. You mentioned the NBA. Mike, you said?
Mike,
you mentioned the NBA. It's not one of my favorites. Unfortunately, the wise guys get information before I do, before ESPN does, before Vegas does. Somehow or another, they know when the prima donnas don't want to play that night. And the line moves, and by the time we get the information, very tough. I will get it. I will do the NBA. It's much tougher. College baskets is a lot more consistent. The kids come to play. They give 100% every day. the matchups mean something. You could still play zone. There's things to factor in. They're not allowed to take 3 steps to dunk the ball. They're not allowed to turn the ball over when they dribble. And it's still a competitive game. It's not a wide open forum. I'm not a big fan of the NBA, but I will be talking about it. We will be touting it. And occasionally we're gonna get some good plays, some real good plays.
Okay, Frankie from Top Run Springs. What do you think of PED?
A great question. Well, I guess there's 2 parts to answer to that. As to sports, I'm not sure what the big deal is if it's level and everybody knows they can do it and it's done under the team doctor's supervision. And the one example I'll give, and I've talked about this before, is Mark McGuire. The guy had 30 home runs every All-Star break. He could never break the record. He broke down. His back was hurting. He had hamstring problems. A big man. And it's hard to go through a whole season without injuries. So he was one of the first to give it a try. And then others followed because the results were a full season of being strong like it was day one. So what is wrong with that? I don't know. I'm not sure. So for regular society, I'm going to say this, my little 2 cents, that I'm certainly behind it. I have a doctor through Kelly. I'm going to let Kelly, you're going to answer the rest of this because you're better than me. But I do believe under a doctor's supervision,
Right.
it's a positive. But what do you think? I know you've done so much research on that.
Well, I'm a strong advocate for bioidentical hormones or any of those things you can do to help yourself age and prevent sickness and injury further.
Flashes.
Yeah, to fight all that off as you age, because we are living longer lifestyles. Unfortunately, some of the things we ingest and other things that we do breaks down. You see more dementia now and all those things. And I think women and men both need to have their hormones checked. And there's all kinds of alternatives that I don't think they fit in the PED arena,
Right.
but they definitely will make the quality of your life
Go to your
better.
doctor, get
Yes.
your blood tested, and he will tell you where your deficiencies are.
Yes.
And maybe vitamin B12, maybe the only thing. And then
Right.
you'll feel better. He may say, wow, your testosterone's low. I didn't want to hear that when I hit 48, 49, 50.
Right.
So he put me on a regimen. And at
Right.
64, he said I have the testosterone, as you well know, as probably a 35-year-old.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So anyways, go do that. It's a really good thing.
Yeah.
All right. Tracy from Alabama. Loved your
The
book.
panhandle.
The Panhandle. Loved your book, Larry. When is the movie coming out?
Oh, well, I answer that a lot, and I'll thank you, Tracy, for asking it again. It's in the process. It's in the works. Hollywood is in such flux with who's buying who's doing different things. It's not going to be a small budget, okay? As you know, Terry Winter wrote the script for me, and don't quote me on the exact number, but the budget for the first season was like $120 million. That is not a joke. Somebody's got to stroke that check. So until that company comes along that knows they're going to have a 5 or 6 season run, so I'm just sitting waiting. We do have the documentary as a possibility. Kevin Kaufman, I mentioned him. He's trying diligently to put a good deal together to get at least a good documentary out there to keep the public watching the story. It's very popular and they deserve something, really.
Okay. Sam from LA. Which Harborough is the better coach, and will Jim turn the Chargers into winners?
That probably just came in recently because I just mentioned Harbor. They're both great coaches. The reason I'll give Jim an edge, to me, my opinion only, is because everywhere he's gone, he's won. From high school to the different colleges, Michigan, Stanford. Stanford was a power when he was there. Michigan obviously won the championship. He brought Indianapolis to a Super Bowl. He brought San Francisco 49ers to a Super Bowl. That's Jim Harbaugh. The other Harbaugh, why is his name Mike Harbaugh? John Harbaugh. They both take after their father, who was a football coach. Has been in Baltimore for like 20 years. And he's done a great job. Obviously, that's why he's still there. So I'm not saying he's any worse than his brother, but his accomplishments, he did win 2 Super Bowls. So I'm almost contradicting myself. But he stayed in one place. He sat there. So, but then again, Andy Reid does too. I get it. I'm leaning toward Jim.
Okay, also the SEC is no doubt the toughest conference in college football.
No doubt.
Which division is the toughest in the NFL?
Oh, I sort of touched on that before. I said you could look at that from two angles. Is the toughest one Kansas City because they're probably not going to lose a division, and if you're in that division, where's the argument? I tend to think the toughest divisions are where there's competition, and I mentioned the NFC East. There's 3-team competition to win that division. I wouldn't want to be in there. I don't want to be New England. Same thing with Detroit, Green Bay, and the Bears are coming up a little bit, especially with the Caleb, the new quarterback Caleb. 49ers and Rams. I'm going to say that the division I won't want to be in right now is going against Green Bay and Detroit.
Okay. Samaj from New Jersey. New Jersey, by the way. What's your favorite sports movie?
Favorite sports movie? Good question. I'm glad. I like this a little bit because it's sports and it gives me a little way to get out of the gambling end of it. Because I want this to be more than just sports, but it's going to be mostly sports. But anyway, probably there's a lot of them that I like. My favorite is probably Rocky. Who didn't love Rocky, especially Rocky 1? That to me is a standard. It's a classic. Someone who wants to follow or part of the business of making money, but that Rocky, I could watch it over and over. It changed my life in some ways when it came out. There were some horse racing movies that you probably never heard of that brought tears to my eyes. The Champ, that brought tears to my eyes. There's other movies out there that I'm probably, off the top of my head, I'm forgetting. Some of them were too cheesy, but Two for the Money. How about Two for the Money? That just hit me. Who was in that? McConaughey and Pacino. Now, it was like what we're doing, but it was dramatized and cheesied up. I don't think Armand Asante is really going to go do what he did to that guy in the park. You're going to have to watch the movie if you want to know. I won't even say it because Armand's got too much class for that. But I did like that movie a lot too because it fit right into what I do. And that's it. And I think as much as I don't want to say goodbye to my friends and members who are watching, we have to. Our hour is up, and we want to be able to...
we want to get it uploaded today,
yes,
so everybody can have it out there and know what to pick for the week.
It'll be out tonight, and we may be back Friday. I say may because we are still working on the kinks, but eventually it will definitely be Wednesday and Friday, and we'll be in touch. We'll let you know when that website is up and running, and please join Inside Straight. You'll get the information in front of you. You'll get the hot plays live when it happens. You'll get that alert. Very important. Thank you, and be a winner with Inside Straight.
Goodbye.